Welcome to Limitless. In this episode, I am joined by Jacinta Tynan, and she comes in for a really powerful conversation about returning to yourself and how that moment of surrender and when you're at rock bottom really can unlock your true power and essence. We talk about some of the tools that Jacinta has used over many years, from writing memoirs, from journaling, learning and then mastering and having a daily practice with Vedic meditation, to her most recent modality experiment, which has been through breath work. And she shares how through breath, she's found stillness and surrender. Now, if your nervous system is quietly whispering, I can't hold all this is too much, it's time to let it go, to regulate, to reconnect, to rise. I would like to invite you to join my friend Mackenzie and I for The Sanctuary, a journey to your heart. It is a 90-minute guided breathwork and somatic experience designed to soften your system, return you back to peace, and reconnect with your limitless self. We're gathering on Saturday, August 23 in North America, or it'll be Sunday morning, August 24 for those of you down under. The doors are now open. The link to The Sanctuary to come and regulate and rise with us is in the show notes. We would love to have you join us. Now take a breath, let yourself arrive, and enjoy this beautiful conversation with Jacinta. Welcome to Limitless, the podcast for cycle breakers, change makers, and conscious leaders who are done performing, proving, and pleasing, and are ready to live, lead, and create from deep alignment. I'm your host, Fiona Walsh. Every 2 weeks, I hold space for real soul-expanding conversations with guests who are still in it. They're navigating their biggest fears, shedding old identities, letting go of patterns that no longer serve them, and rising into their limitless potential. Together, we share what it's really like to be human, messy, raw, imperfect, and learning to own every part of ourselves, even the ones we've tried to keep neatly tucked away. We go deep into the work of coming home to yourself, getting out of your head, feeling safe in your body, letting go of old stories, and creating a life that's true to who you really are. Subscribing to Limitless is the best way to make sure you never miss an episode. So hit pause and tap follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Because this isn't about doing more. It's actually about remembering who you are. And that's what makes you limitless. Welcome to Limitless. Today, I'm joined by Jacinta Tynan. She's a journalist, author, and founder of the Spiritual Book Club, a global community of readers drawn to soul-stirring conversations about growth, meaning, and what it really means to live in alignment. For those of you listening outside of Australia, Jacinta was a prominent news anchor and journalist for many years. But it's the story behind the public success, the personal unraveling, the rebuilding, and the quiet becoming that we're going to explore today. I was introduced to Jacinta by Beck, one of our past Limitless guests, and I know that a few of my other guests from seasons 1 and 2 are actually part of her book club. This is a conversation about rising from the inside out, not in spite of life's messiness, but because of it. Jacinta, I'm so glad you're here today. Welcome to Limitless.
Thank you, Fiona. What a lovely introduction.
All right. Well, I warned you, we jumped straight in. So could you take us back to that moment in time, that pivot point where you were like, I'm done, things have got to change?
There are actually many of those in my life because I do think that we hit rock bottom as an opportunity to grow. So when you invite that stuff in, it does come at you. But the one, I would say the most recent and probably biggest reckoning in my life was when I left the family home with my then 2 young boys. And it interestingly, it I had moments before that where I was making the decision to do that. But interestingly, the big kind of moment of breakthrough happened after I'd already left home. And I think that's because, as many people would know, mainly women who've maybe been in a situation like this, and you can read between the lines, I was in survival mode and for a long time, and I was just trying to make this big decision. Well, I already made the decision, but I was trying to get the courage to make that big move. I've got to get my boys out of here. I've got to break a cycle. And so that all my energy and adrenaline, I guess, was going into that. I've got to find somewhere to live. I've got to sort that out, and all of the logistics and the legal stuff and the finances and the purely just getting by, also while trying to work and so on. When I moved with my two boys and was in a rental, and I finally had time to catch my breath, that's when everything hit me. And I remember very clearly one of those dark nights of the soul, it literally was. And I was lying on the floor. Why are we always on the floor when we have these moments? Actually, there are reasons for that. They say that it's like praying. You want to get low to the ground. There are, you probably know, Fiona, there are physiological reasons why we're drawn to the floor. So I was on the floor and in deep, deep despair. And it was triggered by, I didn't regret leaving. It wasn't that. It was just triggered by this realization of, oh, this is my life now. I'm responsible for these two little boys. And it really hit me how alone I was, because I was alone in that relationship anyway. But I also, at the same time, there was some family estrangement in my extended family, without going into details, so that I felt, and it's not even a feeling, I was completely alone. I was the only adult in these children's lives. And I just thought, I can't go on. I can't take this on. This is too much for me. And so I was on the floor crying and saying, I can't do this. I can't do this. And then at some point I remember praying and just saying, okay, just help me. I'd read all the books. I read all the spiritual books, which have always really helped me. So I know that, and I do my meditation and I know all the things. So I know they say, the spiritual masters say, just pray, just ask. So I was like, all right, help me, just help me. I know I'm meant to be here. Doesn't feel like I am. I'm meant to be in this world. So what am I supposed to do? And then I reached to the books behind me on the bedside table and grabbed a copy of Michael Singer's The Untethered Soul, which I happened to be reading at the time. Opened it to a page that I was up to, and I read a paragraph on surrender. And so in that moment, it was like you get those messages from on high. So it's like, I got this message. That's what you need to do, surrender. So I did. I just thought, I'll try it. So I just went, all right, I'm handing this over. This is too big for me. I can't take this. And then I felt some peace descend on me. And that was the beginning, I guess, of waking up.
So powerful. And I wonder, in that moment, did you really know what surrender meant, or was it really a journey and a lesson in what surrender is over the next years, decades after that moment in time?
It was like I was following a guidebook, because Michael Singer was describing, I remember reading it, at 3 a.m, reading it and going, okay, saying to do this, because in that book, he kind of describes how to surrender, the dot points, the top 5 ways to surrender. So he talks about seeing, being an observer of your thoughts, and then just letting go and just handing it over. I've also read another great book called Letting Go by Stephen Hawking. And I was reading that around the same time as well. And so I just had all that in my brain. And also I do mention books a lot, because they have helped me a lot. Also Pema Chodron's When Things Fall Apart. And so I had all those in my head, and they were all about just handing it over and surrendering. So no, I didn't know what I was doing, but I just thought, I've got nothing else to lose. I've gone as low as I can go. So I'm just going to hand it over. Help me. I was literally saying, help me. All right, you take this from me. You put me here, take this from me. What do you want from me? And I don't remember any great epiphany. It wasn't like I went, now I'm ready to go. But I just remember feeling like I could go to sleep, which was a big miracle at the time. That got to take those. What's the miracle here? The miracle is that I found enough peace to go to sleep. And I also remember noticing, I was on the floor, so I remember noticing, there's some Lego figures under the bed, which, brings the humor. The kids' Lego is lying around and brings you back to reality. And I could see the
the
humor.
reality of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. When you talk about in the book about the being an observer of your thoughts, which I think is like many things in these books that we read, you read it and you can read the framework and you can read the steps, but the actual application of it is way, way more challenging than the words on the page. So tell me a little bit about how you observe your own thoughts and how does that process look for you?
I think I need aids for that. So when I journal, and I don't journal as often as I would like to, because I think journaling is really powerful, but it's when I do exercises like that, I have to be conscious of it. Like I have to say, now I'm going to observe my thoughts. It doesn't come naturally to me. So I could be better at that, but I found that when I've had those moments, you can really get what those masters are talking about, that our thoughts are not us. But I think that's, for me, some people get that maybe more easily. For me, that's probably going to be a life lesson, like a work in progress always, to always remind myself that, no, that's not the truth. And you would find, you'd know this, Fiona, that pretty much every spiritual master, they're almost repeating the same thing, aren't they? Which is that our thoughts are not real. It's like every time you pick up one of those books, they're saying it in a different way. Even Byron Katie, many of your listeners would know Byron Katie, and she talks about the work, but the work is to ask yourself questions. Is this true? So there's so many of the masters talk about that. You just go, is that true, or is that just a thought? And as we know, Eckhart Tolle also talks about that, and Joe Dispenza, and I could go on. So the process, it's ongoing, and I have to remind myself of it all the time, because I do spiral. I do get caught up in my thoughts pretty much every day.
Yeah. I think it's fascinating because I think that you're right, the masters do talk about being an observer, but if you're in survival mode or you're in fight or flight, like you described, or like most people are actually operating in that part of the nervous system most of the time, it's actually quite a difficult thing to have that, put that space between yourself and your ego, which is your thoughts, your critic, which is usually running on autopilot and not running consciously for you. Like it feels real. It feels like the voice in your head is your truth. And yeah, I just find it so fascinating because I can do it sometimes, but not all the time. And so it depends really where you're at, I guess, in how life's going, where you're at in, different chapters and things like that. But yeah, it is a challenging thing to notice between what is your ego or critic and what is your actual truth. Do you know the difference, like from a resonance point of view or a feeling in your body, the difference between when your ego is talking to you and when it's your higher self or your truth?
Again, I have to pull myself up and remind myself of that and check in on that. But I did hear a really interesting distinction on that just recently while I read it. So Sonia Choquette, many of you would have heard of Sonia Choquette, her latest book, Read Life Accurately. And we're doing that in the Spiritual Book Club. We're speaking to Sonia soon. And so I was reading this, and I don't have the quote handy, but she talks in this book about the difference between the ego voice and our higher self. And I read, they say, you read the thing learn the lesson just when you're ready. And so I was obviously ready to really hear that. So it's one of the best distinctions I've ever heard for it, which sounds really simple, but it's just the ego voice is long. It takes longer to say things and it waffles. And our higher self is really clear because it just cuts through. So she said it more eloquently than that. And I could look it up, given time, but that really helped me. That's all. So when I'm meditating, I do Vedic meditation. So I meditate twice a day. And after the first meditation in the morning, I will ask myself questions for the day. And then I used to think, well, how do I know whether that's just my mind, ego talking, or whether it's my truth, my higher self, my soul? And now that's helped me. I can go, no, that is my soul, because it just came through out of nowhere and it's clear. Sometimes it's not what you expect as well. You think, oh, where did that come from? I didn't expect that. But it's just really it's like so succinct, just a few little words. And you might think, what? That doesn't make any sense. And then later you realize, oh, that is what I needed to hear. So that's how I'm doing it at the moment. And also in journaling, it comes through. The truth comes through. Your soul comes through when you journal, I think.
Yeah, I tend to agree with all that you said there. Like I know my critic, it can speak fast and it can be loud and it can be like lots of words and fast and can be and negative emotion and judgmental, critical, all those things. Your higher self is never judgmental or critical. It is always calm and yeah, and very grounded, I would say for me. I also find that as well after meditating, if I journal, I can a lot of words. I mean, people call it flow writing, or there's all different ways. But if you just like journaling after doing meditation, a lot can just like spill out onto the page, and it's always fascinating what it is. And I think that I love that you shared that as well, because it's a beautiful way to let your higher self connect with it and let it speak through you. Because some people see pictures and some people hear, but if you don't, then just journaling and letting the words flow out is such a beautiful way to let your higher self be heard.
And you know what's interesting, Fiona, that while you were just talking then, while I was listening, I just opened up Read Life Accurately, Sonia's book. I just thought I'll just clip it to a page and see if I can find it. I opened on that exact page. Of course I did. And so here it is. She says, we can recognize inner guidance because it shows up in simple, direct statements. Answers from your spirit are short, sweet, and to the point. Unlike your ego, which has a lot to say and can go on and on and on, your spirit wastes no words. Often there are no words to your answers for that matter. You may be swept with a feeling or a knowing instead, and it goes on. So that's the point. Yeah.
Well, we clearly needed to have that read out, because you wouldn't have opened to the page if it wasn't meant to be. So thank you for sharing that. It sounds like a great book. I'll put that in the show notes because people might want to access that and grab a copy. So you mentioned journaling and also Vedic meditation. So do you want to share a little bit more about what Vedic meditation is? I know it's an integral part of your day and daily practice, and a little bit about your journey with this style of meditation.
Yes, I'd been trying to meditate for many, many years, and I'm somebody with a very active mind. So I thought I was one of those people that couldn't meditate. I've got friends like that. They'll say, "Well, I'm just one of those people. I couldn't." I was like that because I talk a lot.
You had a friend in me as well. I was exactly the same. I couldn't shut down the monkey mind.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I can imagine that, Fiona, and I mean that as a compliment, because as people with very active minds who talk a lot and they're creative, and I would think I can't possibly meditate because I have so much to say. There's too many thoughts going on in my head, and so I did try over the years. I tried Buddhist meditation and I tried all sorts, staring at a flame and all of the things. And I went to classes and I just couldn't get it, and I just still thought I'm one of those people. Then I discovered Vedic meditation. And my teacher, Tim Brown, who was in Sydney, he's since passed away a couple of years ago, very sadly. And I'd heard about him. And so I went to do an introduction with him. And then even the introduction, even though where he just talked to me about what it was, even then I thought my whole soul was going, you need to do this. But even then it took me about 2 years to do it, because I was resisting still. Then when I was pregnant with my oldest son, and my oldest son is 15, so that's how long I know I've been meditating. That's how I can track it. So almost 16 years. I was pregnant with him, and I thought that I wasn't going to be able to be a good mother. I had a whole story in my head that I couldn't even mother myself, so how could I mother anyone else? And I really wanted to be a mother, but I was also very scared. I'd also had depression in the past. I was worried that I would get postnatal depression because I was susceptible to that. Yes. So I had all these fears. What's that, Fiona?
No, I said postnatal. Yeah. You thought you might. Yeah. Yep.
So that's right. So then I thought, now's the time. So I went back to Tim and said, "Hi, remember me? Can I learn now?" And so Vedic meditation is so simple. And once I learned it, I realized, this is something I can do, because it's 20 minutes twice a day. And we can always find that time. We think we can't, but everyone can find 20 minutes twice a day. Even with little children, I can tell you that I found the time, put them in front of play school, whatever. So I always found a moment, and you're given a mantra and you recite that mantra in your mind. And it's as simple as that. I remember saying, "So what, this is it? Isn't there some other trick?" "No, that's it. And that's it. And I've been doing that for 15 years. And it's just as many meditators would know listening to this, meditation is actually I was going to say the art, it kind of is an art, but it's the conscious awareness of when your thoughts wander, saying, oh, my thoughts have wandered, back to the mantra. That's the meditation. So I thought I was a bad meditator because my thoughts are always wandering. Still, to this day, done a meditation this morning. I think I thought about a whole lot of other things. But it's that conscious moment when you say, whoops, not even whoops, it's not a mistake, just, I'm thinking about something else. Back to the mantra. That's the practice of meditation, because that's your mind observing, that's your soul observing your mind. And so that's how I discovered it. And then the benefits of it are just, exponential. And that's why I do it. That's why I sit down every day for 20 minutes, twice a day. And I do it because I have to.
Mm. And if you have something that comes up and you miss it, do you really notice a difference in your mental health and well-being?
Yeah, I really do. Yeah. For me, it's almost become, and I say this in a negative way because let's be in full transparency, I do think that meditation has become a bit of a crutch for me. And, you do have to watch it with any spiritual practice, don't you? Because it's got to the point where if I even miss one, so I do my 2, if I miss one, I can't sleep. And I do notice feelings of anxiety coming up, and not officially, I've not been diagnosed with anxiety, but just that panic. And the thoughts are going crazy. And so I really notice it. So it's almost like I wonder if that's almost unhealthy, that it's become such an addiction. I remember Tim, my teacher, saying to me once, well, you see it as that your body just really needs it. And so it's, in a way, it's a positive that it's so clear for me that I cannot miss it. So I get that too. But I almost have meditation envy when people say to me, oh yeah, I've learned Vedic meditation, but I only do it occasionally. And I almost have envy. How could you do that? I just wouldn't be able to cope. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night if I didn't do it twice a day.
Yeah. 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 It's interesting. I guess it's part of it is it's such a powerful tool for you. But then when you do miss it, what's the story you're telling yourself about not having missed the practice and how you're going to feel going forward? Because anxiety usually is a forward projection rather than a backwards, like a fear or something like that. But yeah, that's really fascinating. And do you have any other tools in your practice that helps you, maybe got your meditation to like work through blocks, or when you're breaking cycles, other tools that you use that you found really powerful?
I would say the only other one is journaling, which I resist a lot. And I think I resist, I've thought about this. I think I resist because I'm a journalist and I'm an author, so I value words. So I don't want to just sit down and just write rubbish, which journaling is, isn't it? Stream of consciousness. When you do that kind of journaling, it's not good writing.
Yeah.
So I think I have that.
It's good. Yeah.
Yeah. And I wouldn't want anyone to ever read it. So I think I've got to distinguish between that's your journaling and that's your writing. They're different, but I sit down to do it and I go, oh, I have to make this a work of art, and I don't have the energy for that. And then I remind myself that I don't have to do that. And it's also confronting, but that means it's working. So when you journal, things come up that maybe you don't want to look at or face, or the feelings that you didn't want to have to think about. So I force myself. I do. I would say I don't have any set time on this, but maybe about once a week when I'm grappling with something. We're always grappling with things. And so then I might say, all right, well, I have to journal it out. And I always find it out. Again, maybe not what I expect, but I don't know why I don't do it more often, because I always find an answer. I'll tell you why I don't do more often, Fiona, because I don't have time. Because as we all know, these spiritual practices, they all take time. And once I've done my meditation, and my first Vedic meditation takes about 40 minutes because I add some extra breathing and so on. So once I've done my meditation, and then if I go, well, I'm going to journal as well. And then, then I'm going to go for a walk. The day doesn't start till 10 a.m. So I just can't always do it. Oh, and I might read a spiritual book. So you have to choose. So I journal when I can.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't journal regularly as well. When I'm in a really hard time, I do. Like, I'm really disciplined because I know that it helps get the thoughts and the words out that need to come out. But yeah, I'm with you. And sometimes I sometimes my pen's moving faster than what I can actually process almost. So sometimes it doesn't even, I can't read it back and make all that much sense of it. But I know that I trust that whatever was being processed and came out is like good for the mind and good for the heart and good for the soul. So
Absolutely.
tell me a little bit about, you've written many books. What's the process like for you of, pouring yourself into a book? Like, tell me a little bit about this part of your life.
The books I've written have all been memoir, interestingly. Well, it's not probably, it makes sense because I'm a journalist. I'm used to telling the truth. I actually really admire fiction writers. I think making up a story is so much harder because I just work with what's there. And so for me, I don't go now, I need to write another book. What have I got? They've all come to me through something going on in my life, and I think I need to write about this. So my latest book is called The Single Mother's Social Club. And so here I am going through life as a single mother and making lots of observations like, oh, so interesting how suddenly your social invitations dry up when you become a single mother. And I noticed the stigma around it. And I noticed that so many women were going through it, and I started to meet so many more. And so that's when I decided there's a book in this. That's how it tends to happen for me. Or I might write a column about it and the column really resonates. And so that's my process of coming up with a story. So at the moment, I'm not writing a book because I don't have any, I do, but stuff that I couldn't probably write about actually. But nothing's coming to the fore that I can write about that I feel I really need to share this. And I think with my books, I have always thought, if this is resonating for me, if this is something I'm going through and I'm learning lessons and I always learn and stuff that I can impart to others, then that means there's others going through it. And it's almost like I'm compelled as a journalist / author to do that. It's almost like it's selfish not to share that. And so that's what happened with this latest one in particular. Well, and also Mother Zen, the book before that, it was the same thing where I thought, I've got some stuff to share here and it might help someone. And I tell you what, Fiona, when I do these books and when people contact you, which happens all the time, and still to this day, you get messages from people saying, this book helped me, or it shifted my perspective. It made me feel seen. It made me feel validated. I see things differently now. Any of those messages, which I still get, then that, it makes it worth it. It makes it worth all the effort, but that's the reason. That's why I feel called to write.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so beautiful. And that has been one of the amazingly rewarding parts of this podcast is people listening to other people's stories through this kind of, this medium of storytelling, is that they see themselves in that person's struggle or that person's dark night of the soul. And then the tools that you're sharing today and other guests and stuff, it's just like this beautiful sharing of like, we're all in this together and we can, see ourselves in others' stories and lean on experiences to feel seen and validated, which at the end of the day is what humans desire almost more than anything in this world. So yeah, so beautiful.
Yeah, I always say you're exactly the point you're making, that it's in the stories of others that we see ourselves. We need to see it in someone else to know that we're not the only ones. And I've certainly had that experience on the other side many, many times of reading fiction as well and memoir. And even if it's a different scenario, you still see someone going through pain and struggle and coming out the other side. And it's so reassuring. So that's why I read those kind of books. And that's why when it comes to me, I write them as well.
Yeah. The word that was pinging for me then was just that the loneliness that you mentioned earlier, because you know how sometimes you feel lonely in your struggle and you feel like you're the only one going through it. To have that sense of camaraderie, like I'm not the only one, is like, yeah, it's so beautiful and powerful. Do you think you would ever write a fiction?
Actually, I have thought about that more recently. I
Yeah.
never thought I'd say that, but I'm feeling there's something
Never say
brewing.
never.
Like, never say never. There's something brewing because I'm finding myself reading fiction a lot more than I have. I haven't read fiction for years actually because I'm reading all of these, spiritual books, and so I'm reading a lot more fiction. And then at the same time, stuff that's going on in my life I couldn't write about as a memoir for various reasons. And I'm feeling that same urge I've talked about before to share these stories, but I can't because of various reasons. So I'm thinking, could I write this as fiction because these stories need to be told? So who knows? I haven't written a plan for anything, but it's just, you know what it is? It's that little voice, that voice we get. I just keep getting
nudge, nudge, nudge.
A nudge. Something will happen and I'll think that would work really well in that novel that you're not writing, that you're not even thinking about. So who knows? It's not coming tomorrow, but it might be there.
I love that. That sounds so cool. Tell me what you were like as a little girl, and have you always been into books and reading and words?
I was always a little actor and I used to write plays and put the plays on and I was writing poems and stories. And so that was always in me, as a child, your calling. So it was just innate in me as soon as I could tell a story that I was doing that. And I actually wanted to be an actor. That was always my dream from a very young age. And so I would be performing at home all the time. And then as soon as I was old enough, I'd get the train and take myself off into the city and do acting classes. And that was always the career I was going to go on. There's an interesting moment when that changed. But as a child, back to that, I just felt called to tell stories in some way. That's what I'd say. And I was a very free spirit and just loved immersing myself in other worlds. And that's how I see myself as a child.
That's so beautiful. Were you quite sensitive and intuitive as a child as well?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Sensitive for sure. And that was reflected back to me in a negative way. I'm sure many of you would relate to this, that you're too sensitive was an insult. And so for most of my life, I carried that thinking there's something wrong with me because I feel things too much. And that's a bad thing. Or, I was called a drama queen because I was expressive. And so that's damaging, isn't it? Because I did think those things were negative. Now I haven't thought about it in these terms, but I'm more embracing of that side of myself that is sensitive because I feel things. But that also is, there's a middle ground there, isn't there? Because we don't want to be feeling everything. We have to, at some point, to be able to, participate in this world, we have to be able to be, what's the word now? Self-regulation. There's terms for everything, isn't there? So to be able to own what's yours and self-regulate and realize what doesn't belong to you, because often, I learned this through therapy, we often realize that we're actually carrying other people's stuff that they've dumped onto us. So I've had to do, like a lot of this, a lot of introspection and growing over the time. But I realize, I think, in essence, that sensitivity and that dramatic side of myself, that feeling side of myself is not something to be shunned, which I thought for many years that it was like a flaw in me.
Yeah, I find that's a really beautiful part of the awakening that a lot of people go through in midlife is when they start to remember the parts of them that are true to them, that is true, their true essence and when they're their most authentic self, and do it from a place of like, this is who I need to be, and that this is actually a superpower rather than something that I've armored and protected because when they were little, they had to, because it probably wasn't safe in some households or in some environments to be that open and open-hearted and sensitive. Particularly, I think with like emotional boundaries, if you're not able to like physically like protect yourself with an energetic or emotional bubble. I've actually taught my kids how to do that at a young age now so that they have tools. Like now we have it available to us to have these tools so that big feeling kids who were the highly sensitive ones can stay open-hearted, because I honestly feel like they're the ones that will change the world because they lead with big hearts and love and compassion. So hopefully for those of us who are cycle breaking parents, this can, really set us up for a beautiful future.
Yeah. And I love, I love that you're teaching your kids that. And I sometimes think how different my life would be if I had been celebrated for that side of myself. But that's okay too, because I needed to go through the lessons. But I will just add this, that I realize now, and it sounds like you're teaching your children that, Fiona, which is so special, that being a deep thinker and being sensitive, so-called sensitive, they are gifts. And that's allowed me to do the work that I do. So in, the writing that I do and writing books and any kind of interviews I do, I'm able to access deeper parts of myself and really dig deep to dig up that vulnerability. But also in interviewing other people, I'm able to be with them and be more present and to hear their stories because of that sensitive side of myself. And so I see that now, finally, as a gift.
Yeah. This is so resonant for me because I had spent a lot of time armored up, and when I started leaving corporate and leaning more into coaching, and particularly the kind of containers that I create, it became evident that the more open I could be and the more sensitive, the deeper I could go with clients, the more deep I could go with myself, the more deep I could take my clients. And so it's just so fascinating that the thing that you protected yourself from becomes your greatest offering in service to others and purpose, really, for this next chapter of your life. So we're funny the way we work, humans, the way we protect ourselves from what our greatest gifts are. But most people get there eventually, which I guess is, again, is all part of the journey, all part of the ride. We were talking about, when we were planning this discussion today, we were talking about how recently you did breath work for the first time. And you had a really cool experience. And I love breath work. I've done a lot of it myself, and I do it with practitioners as well. And I had my big awakening into Tulum in a breathwork session. It was the first time I'd really done a proper one. So I always love to hear other people's experience, especially their first or second one, because it can really blow your little mind and open your heart up in a way that, other practices don't. So if you're willing to share, I'd love you to share what that session was and what were some of the learnings you had from it.
I've done it 3 times now. So
3.
I think
She's a pro.
Found something that has cracked me open. So I've had a few amazing experiences in the sessions. Let me think which one I'll share. I went along because a Vedic meditation teacher that I know had a facilitator with her from the US who was teaching this breathwork. So she invited me along. So I went thinking, I'm not going to like this, but I'll just go for the ride. And each time I've done it, I've actually transcended. And in all these years of meditation, I've never transcended. So that's been really magical. And a couple of cool things have happened. One of them was that I saw where I've almost seen my soul. Don't know how to even word this because it's hard to word it because it's just a feeling. But I found myself laughing hysterically at some things that have happened in my life that have been very upsetting and not traumatic. So I want to distinguish that. And I'm not saying that to anyone listening that you need to find the humor in any trauma. It's not that. For me, it was some stuff that's gone on quite consistently that's been very frustrating and hard to deal with. And then I found myself absolutely laughing at it, not in a mocking way, but in a way of just, that is hilarious. Like if life is a script, which again, a lot of the spiritual masters say, we're all just chill out. We're all just playing a role here. Deepak Chopra says that a lot too.
Yes.
And so if life is that play, even Shakespeare said it, all the world's a stage, all the men and women are merely players. If life is a play, then this is really funny. It's actually a comedy. And so that was me in this transcendent state, seeing that and we were laughing in the breath work. So I was laughing and laughing. And since that session, I've come out of that. And in the real world, I've noticed that, which is the real world, by the way, but in what I understand to be reality, I've had these things are still coming at me. And I've just been lighter about it. that's actually quite funny. And one time I had to stop myself responding to a text with the laughing emoji because I just found it hilarious. So that was one of the things. And then another one I'll mention briefly is just, again, the last breathwork session I did, I saw one of my children's souls and my soul. I didn't see it. I felt it. I can't even put it into words. Just combined, and I got the real sense, the understanding, actually, not the sense, that we've been together in a previous lives and that our souls are intertwined. And I needed that. And I was able to communicate with his soul on that level. And then again, and it brought me a lot of peace. I'm going to add this quickly. I also had a moment in the same one where I saw the soul of somebody who's quite difficult in my life. And I remember saying to them, it's not words, it's just a sense, but my soul said to them, oh, thanks for the lessons, but we're good now. And it wasn't like a, F off. It wasn't this negative energy. It was actually just, oh, by the way, thank you. We got those lessons now. So you can go. That's all good. Thank you. And it was not words, just a sense. And guess what? I came out of that when we finished the breathwork session. And there's a ring that person had given me many years ago, and the gem fell out in that session. It actually fell out of the ring. So I stopped wearing it because it's just end of a cycle. Yeah. So lots of cool things have happened and I really love it and don't want it to become an addiction or anything, but I'll go back.
Yeah, I mean, so amazing. And what was coming through for me really clearly is because you were saying you're like laughing, but not in a mocking way, just in a clear, like, this is ridiculous and we should laugh at it kind of situation, is that's your higher self, because your higher self energy is like, wants to have a good time and like, isn't nasty or anything, but just like, holy moly, life's a bit wild at times. So we might as well laugh about it. And I love the connection with your child. I know you had someone else on the book club recently who had written about children and their souls and things like that you mentioned as well. And I know I had an intuitive read for me when one of my kids was going through a really rough period, and I was definitely in that more of that victim mindset of like, why is this happening to me? And why does it have to be so hard? And is this what life's going to be like forever? And I thought that being a mum would be this, this, and this. And it's actually nothing like that. And why me? All those victim type sort of questions. And she said to me, when she was reading my heart energy, she said, oh, your child, one of them, they want you to know, their soul wants you to know that they chose you to be their mum. And it was a light bulb switch moment where I went from, this is so hard, why did this happen to me? Like, this is why I'm here. Like, this is my purpose, is to have this beautiful, busy, spirited child and be their mum. So it's so amazing when we are gifted these experiences, be it in breathwork or whatever, whenever we get them, to have a slight switch take on perspective taking, and then we're able to really move forward in such a positive and empowered way, or a creator way, rather than like the victim way, which is like, why me? This is so hard, which I like, we all do it. I'm not like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, one of my biggest lessons actually of the last, the era, there's so many eras of this era, has been the victim story that I didn't realize I'd been telling for so long, understandably in a way with some of the things that have gone down. But victim energy doesn't help. But I do kinesiology a lot. I should mention that's one of the other practices. If you call it a practice, maybe it's not really a practice, but I get an enormous amount out of kinesiology, or what's the word? NET, neuro-emotional technique.
Yeah.
And so I have, through that, worked out that I was in this full victim story, like almost the archetype. And every story I was telling was poor me. And I realized that I was doing that to get attention. So I was really deep. I didn't know I was doing it. And so maybe they'll see me now if things get bad enough. And so I kind of almost manifested things getting worse and worse, so that it was me trying to get attention really from my mother on a subconscious level. It's always our mother, isn't it?
It's always back to childhood. Yes.
My kids will be the same. She's since
Yeah.
passed, but it was just this like, let me tell you the latest thing that's happened. Is this going to work? Because also I felt my mother put me down when I was shining. So I thought, what if everything falls apart? Maybe then you'll care. So that was the root of it. I mean, very much in the subconscious. I didn't know that at the time. That was the root of it, but I was doing it everywhere. So and that just doesn't serve you. I mean, it might get you the attention, but I don't want to be stuck in that energy. So such a revelation that day when I still remember it actually, when it came up, the kinesiologist is like, this is your victim archetype. That's what you've been stuck in. What? No, but all these things have happened. Yes, but you're kind of creating those things and manifesting those things because it supports that story. And that was a big one. Glad to be free of that one. Although it still comes up. I just have to be aware of it. And I can see myself doing it actually and say, you're just telling another victim story. You don't need to tell that story. And midstream, you can stop the story. Actually, no, I'm going to tell you something else. You're talking to a friend. You're about to go into that. No, I'm going to tell you something else. That story doesn't need to be told.
Yeah.
It's a relief.
Yeah, it's such a relief. And I feel like when coaches or practitioners help you, guide you into your subconscious so that these stories and beliefs and become conscious, so you're aware of them, it's such a gift because then you're empowered to be like, oh, I noticed it. And linking back to the humor and stuff we were talking about, you can even be like, oh, that's pretty funny that you're here again and you're in you chatting again, because your critics come online all the time. You're like, oh, we're going down that path again. No, I'm okay. I've got this. We don't need to jump into hit victim mode. Like, you can actually be quite humorous with them, and these parts tend to respond because they don't want to be as serious as you've been. So, it's quite fascinating. And quite often they're child parts as well, where they came online when you're a child. So being like a bit silly and fun or cute with them is quite productive, because if you think about kids, when you're trying to get through to them, if you can make it fun or a bit silly or playful, they usually engage with it. So it's really fascinating how it all plays out.
Yeah, and you don't realize that you're allowed to be light or playful, do you? In personal growth, we're not told that very often. We think it has to be heavy and dark and going through the pain, and there's a bit of that's needed. But actually, it's a revelation to me. Again, I use that word a bit in this conversation, to understand that this can be a bit of fun as well.
Yeah. I feel like as well, like I bring humor and playfulness into my coaching because I work with people and their critics and their parts a lot. And they definitely, the parts definitely seem to, if they're being quite protective or even aggressive, they tend to back away with a bit of humor as long as it's done respectfully. So I feel like it's a bit of a show a lot of the time as well. So I think more laughs, more playfulness, more fun. What types of things do you like to do, like when you're, in a bit of a funk and you want to like bring some joy and fun into your life? What types of things light you up?
Yeah, well, full disclosure, I haven't had a lot of that lately. I think I have neglected that part of myself because it has been, even after I left home with my kids, it's not like it was all smooth sailing after that. It's been tough. So I think I've been in, again, a lot of survival mode.
Yeah.
So I don't go and actively seek out the joy. But when it's presented to me and when I find myself in it, then I can see how much more I need it, if that makes sense. So I love, I mentioned I wanted to be an actor growing up, and I love theatre and film. So when I went to see a play the other night. I don't go very often. Again, it came to me, and I just, that lights me up. I just think, oh gosh, just to see that art form on the stage. And dancing I don't do enough of, but when I do, that's just so invigorating. And I've been to, there's a thing in Australia called Disco Club, and it's by, a lot of Australians would know these two fabulous women called Lise and Sarah, and they have a great podcast as well. And they run Disco Club, and I've been to a few of those. And that is so much fun, just to be dancing to classics from our youth and moving the energy around. To mention Sonia Choquette again, I asked her once, because I actually met her at the I Can Do It Summit in Phoenix, Arizona. And I asked her, what is the quickest way that we can access our fifth dimension? That's what she calls it, our higher self, the fifth dimension.
Yeah.
And she went, dancing, movement, without question. And she had the whole room, about 1,000 people up dancing to Lady Gaga. And it's just, you cannot not feel good when you do that. So I do need to do more of that, but I don't have it on in the house. I don't even have music on in the house or anything. So that they would be some of the things. And also I'm facing that I hate labels on things, but I'm facing that I am an extrovert. Even though I meditate and need that time alone, I do love people, and I get really lit up by great conversations and being around amazing people. That invigorates me. I love a good bushwalk too, in solitude. So see, I'm a bit of both.
Yeah, you're a bit of both. Yeah, nature's one of the biggest natural regulators, so it's beautiful for our nervous systems to be out in regulation. But I'm with you on the dancing. I'm like, music is a huge portal for me, so I use it to like lift my mood, and if I need to focus, I put different music on, and it's a really important tool in my life every day. So I'm noticing the more and more I draw on it, the more I can, use it for my emotional and energetic resonance, which is really cool. So before I move on to the rapid fire questions, I always ask one final question. So transformation often happens in small and intentional steps. It's these little micro movements. It's really these big quantum leaps that we sometimes hear about or read about in books that helps us unlock this lasting change. So based on your journey, Jacinta, what's one small step or action the listeners today could take to unlock their limitless potential?
I think journaling is the most powerful. Asking those questions. So it's about the right question. I love that question. What would love do now? Or just that, what is my soul calling me to do? So if you get the question right and then just stream of consciousness writing, something will come out. I don't know if your listeners or you have heard of The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron.
Yeah.
That is one of the most powerful books I've ever read, life-changing books. And you do exercises through the book, and it's about uncovering your creativity. And she introduced this concept called the morning pages. A lot of other people have appropriated it, so you might have done it in a different context. But you write 3 A4 pages each day and talk about journaling prompts. There's questions in there to ask yourself, and then start the writing process every morning. And that's where I got my ideas for my books. And that's where so many ideas have come to, for steps to take in my life. And you get the answers that way. So that would be, I think, a surefire way to tap into your soul and get those answers. Because I think when you talk, the critic voice can sometimes be too loud and will override it. But it's a very solitude and introspective process when you're writing. And and the stream of consciousness is important. So you're not editing and going, what does that sound like? I could find a better word. You just don't lift your pen from the page and just let it go. It's really powerful.
Yeah. And you can't do it wrong. So if your critic comes online, starts saying, oh, you should do it this way, that way, you can't do it wrong. Just as long as you've got a prompt. And even I was taught, which is really helpful, if your prompt is like, what does my soul want me to know? Just keep writing that statement down. You might write it 10 times, and then watch out, your pen will take off and the stream of consciousness will flow through. But write it. Okay. And if it doesn't work the first day, don't beat yourself up about it. Give it another go. Give it 3 or 4 times to see, and eventually it will take off. Because I don't know anyone who can't do flow writing. You just need to give yourself the time and the space.
And you also have to get rid of the concept that someone's going to read this when I die. I often think about that, and I don't read it. Don't think that, because I think someone's going to find these diaries and think, oh my God, she was so depressed, or they, because it's your deepest thoughts that you're not even thinking yourself necessarily. So I don't know. Some people say that they burn the diaries or just chuck them out. I haven't been able to do that because there's kernels of things in there, but just hopefully they'll destroy them when I'm gone. They're not a record of my life, is my point.
Yeah, exactly. Mine is such Mine's you can't even read it. It's illegible half the time. So I don't think I'd have any problem. As I said before, sometimes I'm looking back going, what the hell did I write? I'm sure there's wisdom in this. All right, let's do some rapid fire. Jacinta, what's your superpower?
Gosh, I was not expecting these questions. So let me think. What's my superpower? I think it's authenticity. So being able to tap into my own truth with tools and being able to help, what would it be? Empower others to be in their truth as well.
Yeah, beautiful. What's one thing you're deeply grateful for today?
My children.
What advice would you give your younger self and why?
It sounds cliched, but to be true to myself, because that got knocked out of me quite early. And I spent many years trying to move away. And I've talked about that in this conversation, to move away from that, who I really am, in order to fit in or be accepted or even loved by others.
Yeah.
So I want her to be that free spirit that she is. I think my life would have taken a very different course. Not that the course I'm on is wrong, but it would have taken a very different course and perhaps been more aligned with my talents and purpose if I wasn't so caught up with trying to be accepted.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's super relatable for so many people listening. When you hear the word limitless, the name of this podcast, what are 3 feelings or words that are evoked for you?
Potential. I would say purpose. And by that, so they're different things. By purpose, I mean that I think we all have a purpose, and that doesn't mean your career, right? It means what lights you up. So if things were limitless, we'd all be living our purpose. Well, if I need to speak about me, I would be living more aligned with my purpose if things were limitless. And then I would say abundance comes to mind. And that's in all areas, love and relationships and financial as well. And financial is a big one for me. That's been a block in my life. And I sort of know why. I've done a bit of work on working it out, but it's still something I'm trying to break through. And it's all connected, isn't it? Because it's all about self-worth.
Yeah.
So the third word is abundance and self-worth. Can I put 2 in? Abundance and self-worth.
Yes,
limitless potential there for those things.
Yep. Yeah. And the abundance, the money one also is a great one to trace back to your mum and dad and what was the programming or conditioning that you were exposed to as a child, because a lot of our money stories come from our childhood as well. Thanks, Mum and Dad.
I find that hard because I'm one of 6 and we all have very different, not that I've asked them about their money stories, but I can see, and also it's almost like we all had 6 different childhoods. And so I do find that a little hard, but yes, I'm doing that work among everything else.
Yeah.
It's a work in progress.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. They say that even in big families, everyone will have a different experience because their parents are different at different stages, and the mix and dynamics of different numbers of kids means that everyone's experience was different. At the end of the day, it's only how you felt that actually mattered in any given moment. So, what's your go-to song if you need to raise your mood or your vibration? You might not. You said you don't listen to much music, so no. What would you do? Would you pick up a book or go for a walk? What would you do if you needed to shift your energy?
So I don't have a go-to song. So I would never do this. I don't know why, Fiona. Sometimes I wonder if I'm denying myself that. I don't want to feel the joy. It's almost scary. So I don't have a song that I would go to, but there are songs that if I hear them, it lights me up. There are also other songs that I turn off if I hear them, because you know how sometimes joyful memories, but it can be painful because you think I'm not there in that place now. So I don't have the go-to song, but if I want to shift my vibration, I think being in nature. So I live near the bush and live near the ocean. And so just getting out there is always shifts my mood and perspective.
Yeah.
Try to find the humorous side as well in things. Talking to a friend and finding the funny side.
Well, that's beautiful. Well, Jacinta, thank you so much for coming on to Limitless today, for sharing your stories, your vulnerability and your wisdom. I know that everyone listening will have lots of takeaways and lots of things to ponder. So thank you for joining me today.
It's been such a joy. Thank you so much, Fiona.
Thank you for tuning in to Limitless. If you enjoyed today's episode and love hearing the stories of courageous cycle breakers, I'd be grateful if you could leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Your feedback not only helps others discover the show, but it also amplifies our mission to unlock emotional freedom and true potential. Every review makes a difference in helping more people embrace their limitless life.